Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished young person from New Delhi, India, Palakh Khanna. Palakh, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, firstly.
Thank you. Palakh is the founder and CEO of Break the Ice. She is a UNSDG Regional Officer for the Asia Pacific, and she's a Harvard Innovation Fellow. Palakh, you've achieved a lot very early in life. Tell me a little bit about your journey.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for just having me, actually. I'll give an introduction about me, just an extended introduction. So, hi everyone, I'm Palakh. I'm 19 years old. I am a youth change maker, social entrepreneur, a mentor, and an environmentalist. Recently, I became India's 20 under 20, and I'm also officer for Asia Pacific.
Okay.
So, I mean, the journey has just started, very honestly.
Absolutely.
I have, just 19 years of existence, but I do feel that the last 2 years, and I thank the pandemic for that, because I was the biggest introvert you would ever meet. I would be in my own shell. I was a big nerd. But gradually, I started exploring and taking risks, and here's what has turned out of it. So yes, I feel like that is the journey that I wish to highlight. That from an introvert, I've become an ambivert. I won't say I'm an extrovert even now, but I'm gradually improving, and I'm just taking risks.
Fabulous, fabulous. And before I get into anything else, you said you started taking risks. Tell me a little bit about some of the risks that you have taken.
Okay, so as an introvert, everything that I've done is actually a risk.
Okay.
At the end of the day, for someone who just had two friends who was in her hell, even opening an organization was the biggest risk for her. And something like Break the Ice, which talks about things which are not talked about, was something that I consider the biggest risk that I took. And then eventually, as someone who also writes a lot, because I don't express myself too much, so I express myself through paper.
Okay.
When I started writing on LinkedIn, I feel like that was also a big risk that I took, which is eventually, turning out to be a great success in itself.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful. So, Palakh, let's talk about Break the Ice. Tell me a little bit about what you are doing and what is the motivation to start this?
Okay. So Break the Ice is trying to literally break the ice about taboo topics and stigmatized topics. And we're trying to help in creating enlightenment the youth. What we do is we talk about everything which society doesn't talk about and tries to shun, from mental health to LGBTQ plus to gender equality to even bullying. We are trying to discuss topics which people don't often talk about, and we're trying to do this in the youth so that the future is bright. And we do this through on ground workshops and drives, as well as online events, speaker events, as well as community building. And what was the motivation behind it? I think I've always tried to say this. It sounds very philosophical, but I create change. But eventually, I overheard this conversation between my mom and my domestic help. And my domestic help was, she'd had her periods at our place, but she was shying away from a conversation about getting sanitary napkins. And I took my mom to the side, and I was actually triggered almost. And I told her, we live in the 21st century. What are we doing? Periods is the most natural process. It's the only blood which doesn't come out of violence. About it. And that's when my mom told me, and I also needed that push. My mom told me that, if you're that passionate about it, create a platform which just talks about things which are not talked about. So that's the idea. And that was basically the turning point where everything began.
Very interesting. You also say, Palakh, that Break the Ice is an international youth organization working towards breaking taboos. You have spoken about the period, which is the most natural human response from a woman's body. Tell me about some of the other taboos that you have been dealing with.
Okay, so we've been dealing with bullying. We are trying to also include LGBTQ acceptance into this, so that every community benefits from it at the end of the day. We also want to bring in other communities which may have been considered as minorities, may have suffered as acid attack survivors, or even, I don't want to say the term, but that's often what they are called, disabled individuals. They are differential. But yes, so I want to bring all of them into the community so that they benefit, because all of these are taboo topics and people need to be aware of it. We're trying to gradually go to that level so that everyone is comfortable, and then everyone is also able to take action for it. We just don't want to create awareness, but also action towards all the taboo topics.
How wonderful. And as you have been building Break the Ice, what have been some of your challenges and some of your learnings?
I think everything that we've done through Break the Ice as an individual founder, as well as through the group, I feel like I've learned so much. The first thing would be that you really need to work as a team to be successful as an international organization, because we are in 10 countries. We have individuals who are in 10 countries. So communication, just, that team effort is something that I learned gradually. I did see that in school projects and things that we did together as a team. But when you're working in an organization where everything is so voluntary, that you can quit at any moment, you really understand the importance of working as a team. So that's something that I've taken back as a lesson. And one of the challenges that we faced is actually entirely based on the aim. We are trying to break taboos. So, reaching the right audience, creating the right kind of, just the buzz in the right manner was very difficult initially, because everyone was like, why are we talking about things which are not supposed to be talked about?
Correct.
Because they thought that it's not supposed to be talked about. But gradually we tried to, break that stigma in itself as well.
Very interesting. And as you were talking, I'm thinking I'm 46 years older than you are. And I was going back to when I was 19, and I was thinking a lot of these topics were a taboo then. Why is it that society is not willing to change or break these taboos? I mean, I didn't do anything about it, and I'm delighted that you decided to do something about it. But what is preventing us?
I think it's, there are various levels to this answer, honestly. And I think our own mindset, society's mindset, and the barriers that we create around culture and all the other things as well, culture, religion, gender, age, everything in between. Because, like, if I'm talking to my grandfather about anything, even mental health, even if I say anxious and anxiety, not even like serious disorders like depression, if I'm talking about anxiety to him, he'll be like, there's nothing like that which exists. It's all in your mind, because there is a different mindset.
Correct.
And adapting to a new mindset may be difficult, but that's what we are here for. We are trying to do that so that, I know we are catering to the youth, but we are also catering to other people, because through those youth we are reaching out to families and communities. So that's the idea. And I think it's all about the mindset, honestly. That is the barrier, whether it's society's mindset, individual's mindset, or an age group's mindset. So eventually it's changing that mindset and bringing in that maybe everything that we don't talk about is very normal and we should start talking about it.
Absolutely right. And nothing is better than talking, because when you talk and, as you say, write, thoughts get expressed, opinions are shared, and taboos get broken. But tell me, I mean, you gave me an interesting example of your grandfather, and I must be very close to his age. But there are a lot of mindsets that we have, and I have noticed this in different cultures. So there are some cultures in India which are much more open than others. My question to you, Palakh, is how does culture affect taboos, and what are we doing about it?
Okay. So I'll answer the second part of the question first. What are we doing about it? Honestly, we're doing nothing about it.
Okay.
Because even us as a community, we cannot reach cultures suddenly. Culture is a huge part of a community. And eventually, it's not only about the mindset, also, it's all about the culture as well.
Yeah.
You can influence one person, you can influence 10 people. That maybe let's talk about mental health, for example. But changing the entire mindset of the culture, we cannot do that as individuals. We have to work together as a community to do that. The first part of the question, how culture affects our mindset and what does it do to taboos, I think there is a drastic difference between cultures within India and even across the world. When we're talking about, culture in the US or basically the Western culture, it is drastically different from India. And, such examples, very small examples like maybe clothing is there is taboo around clothing, certain kinds of clothing as well in India, right?
Correct.
So I think cultures influence everything, and you cannot break them actually because they're again an essential part of human existence itself. But again, if you're able to convince somehow the entire culture that this is a relevant topic, not even important, and start conversations about it, I think everyone will get enlightened eventually that maybe it's not bad at all.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So one more question relating to break the ice, and then I'll move to your role in the Sustainable Development Goals. What is your view on economic prosperity and taboos? Is it that taboos in developed or developing regions are better handled than places which are not developed?
Okay, I think that's a very interesting question. And honestly, I'm smiling because I had this conversation day before with my dad, talking to him about how it doesn't correlate at all. It's all about the mindset. I know I said this initially also, but at the end of the day, taboos exist because of a different mindset, not even a bad or a wrong mindset, maybe a different mindset. Economic prosperity only gives us, at the end of the day, at an individual level, a higher income or a better quality of life, and at an international level, a developing or a developed country. But what are we doing to develop our minds? That depends on us as individuals as well as a community. Because obviously there are cases where the economic prosperity can affect us and our mindset because we don't have that kind of education. So if I talk about relatively humble communities who don't have access to quality education, which is saddening at this point, but they don't have access to quality education, they will have more stigmatized opinions about even simpler topics that we talk about casually. It might affect their mindset, but as a community, we are creating taboos together. And it does not relate to our economic prosperity.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So, but what you're also telling me is that it may relate to education.
Yes.
Wonderful. So, Palakh, let's move to your other avatar as United Nations SDG Regional Officer. Tell me about the role that you are playing here.
So I'm working with this organization called UNSDG Youth as a regional officer for Asia Pacific, and it is quite an interesting role actually because I'm trying to work to achieve all the SDGs in the entire Asia Pacific region by coordinating with all the other stakeholders in the entire Asia Pacific region, which is because there is a cultural difference, there is a way of life which is different in every country in Asia Pacific. It's very interesting to handle everyone because there are so many different opinions to how we SDGs. But it's all the more I'm very passionate about this role because I love to work towards everything which has to do with any SDG actually. So this role kind of combined SDGs and leadership and creating a change. So I was thrilled to even get a chance to
Very interesting. And you said that you're working with different teams, but are you focused on any particular 2 or 3 or the 17 SDGs, or are you working on all?
No. We are working on all SDGs, and we're hoping to achieve all of them in the Asia Pacific region by 2030.
Very interesting. And what is the process that you follow in coordinating with so many different countries?
Interesting because it's an online organization. We're still working on online platforms. We use Slack, we use Microsoft Teams, and we're communicating through jam boards where we are brainstorming on ideas. But it's also interesting because if it was an offline organization, I would have never met those individuals. It's because of the online community that we've built that I'm even interacting with people who are living near. It's thrilling. And yeah, we communicate through basic online platforms, and you just have to ensure that the team is quite responsible enough to respond on time. That's the communication that you need.
Very interesting. So my next question to you, Palakh, is that when I was reading about you, I was fascinated to see someone as young as you talking about SDGs. When I was on the board of Gavi, the Global Alliance for Vaccines, it was on the fourth MDG. In those days, MDG and SDGs came
Yes,
after the
yes.
MDGs. Uh, how aware are the young about these sustainable development goals? And is there conversation that goes on amongst young people?
Okay, so again, there'll be two types of people. There'll be one who know everything about the SDGs, are extremely passionate about it, working in some way or the other towards it.
Mhm.
And then there's another group of people who aren't even aware of what SDG actually means. They don't know the full form of it.
Mm.
So I have seen these drastic individuals in my own friend circle as well. There's some people who are like, "What is an SDG?" And I'm trying to explain to them, and they're like, "Okay, never mind. It is
Who
something."
cares? Mm.
Yes, exactly. And there are some people who are like, yes, exactly. All of them are intersectional and all of them are connected. We should work towards them. So I think both exist in today's world. And that's what I wanted to change actually through Break the Ice also. Because, like I mentioned, I have always said that I want to create change. But because I was an introvert, I never really explored anything in my life until like I was 17. I never thought of what could be that thing that can actually make a change. I told my mom, let's do something in gender equality. There
Mhm.
was a time when I said, let's do something about environment. But
Mm.
gradually through Break the Ice, I combined all of them because we were catering to every SDG indirectly.
Mm.
It's not just one taboo, it's not just climate, it's not just quality education, but it's everything together. So that's
Mm.
what I wanted to do actually, to create enlightenment amongst the youth so that at least they're aware of SDGs, take a stance on it,
Mm.
even if it's a good or a bad stance, at least
Correct.
have an opinion about it.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And given the fact that you work with so many different countries, if you were to dispassionately look at how different countries are doing in relation to the SDGs, how are we performing in India?
Okay, I think again, it might be a controversial or maybe a different opinion. Not exactly controversial because people are aware of where we stand as a country
Mm.
in terms of the SDGs. I think we are lacking in some SDGs majorly,
Mhm.
while we're improving a lot in others. So if
Mm.
we compare with the world and if we see our population, maybe we aren't achieving SDG 4, which is providing quality education to everyone, which
Mm.
should be our priority since we have such drastic and different groups of individuals in our country, right? There's
Mm.
so many religions, there's so many cultures, there's so many economic backgrounds that
Yeah.
education becomes that combining factor, which
Mm.
I feel India still lacks
Mm.
because quality education is not something which is given to everyone. The
Mm.
word quality, we often forget it because people say that no, no, we are teaching people in rural areas,
Mm.
we're
Mm.
helping them, but are they actually getting the quality education that they
Mm.
deserve? Maybe not.
Mm.
So, and in terms of another SDG that I think we should consider is
Mm.
obviously SDG 1, which is no poverty.
Yeah.
Because as a country which is, there are a large group of people who are still underprivileged,
Mm.
I think that should be something that we consider as our priority. And like I said, all of the SDGs, they're so interconnected and there's this intersectionality between them.
Yeah.
But for our country, where the population is so high, we can actually use it to our advantage to,
Mm.
end of the day, for economic development and for the development of the society. So I think SDG 1 and SDG 4 is something where we are slightly lacking, or
Mhm.
maybe we can improve further in
Mm.
terms of other nations.
Mm. Fascinating. Um, my next question to you, Palak, is, and probably my last question to you, is that given the amount of work you have done, and as you say, only in the last 2 years, and my honest comment based on our discussion is that I have not interacted with someone of as young as you who's so aware. Uh, what would you say are three lessons you would like our viewers and listeners to take away, both from the perspective of Break the Ice and from the perspective of the SDGs?
Okay. I mean, two of them would be very cliche, but I think that I've often considered them cliche and never took them seriously.
Hmm.
So that's why I say this everywhere I go, that you have to follow your passion.
Hmm.
I know we all have seen the quote everywhere in our
Yeah,
house,
yeah,
on our phone wallpapers,
yeah.
but for a person who herself had it on her phone wallpaper
Yeah.
but never really understood the meaning of it, I
Yeah.
think I want everyone to remember that you have
Mm.
to follow your passion.
Mm.
And the second thing can be taking risks, because something that I've learned through my life,
Mm-hmm.
actually. I know just 19 years of existence, but even in those 19 years, I've learned that eventually everything, wherever you succeed, you've taken a risk somewhere.
Mm.
You know, you won't succeed anywhere where you haven't taken the smallest risk possible. So I think
Mm.
taking a risk, and you can term it differently, saying that you need to step out of your comfort zone, but at the end of the day, eventually getting out of your comfort space
Mm.
and taking risks.
Mm.
And the third thing, I think this would be more related to SDGs,
Mm.
but also us as young people have to get educated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to get that quality education for wherever possible. If you feel your school is giving you that education, go for it. If you
Mm.
feel online is giving you that, go for it. But get educated and get enlightened towards everything in life, rather than just something that maybe you are pursuing as a course.
Mm. Oh, wonderful. Palak, on that note, and your three amazing lessons, follow your passion. And I'll just add one word to that, which is implement. A lot of people
Absolutely.
have follow their passion, but they don't follow through as you have been doing and you are doing. Second one you said was take your risks, and third one is to get yourself educated. I think it's been such an amazing conversation for me, and I've often said this. I'll be 66 this month, but I've often said that when I talk to young people like you, I know the future of the country, future of the world is in safe hands. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you so much for having me, and this was an amazing conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.